All right, get ready because we're diving deep today into a really fascinating topic. The complex unity of YHWH in the Hebrew Bible. It might sound a little academic, but believe me, this is going to be a wild ride.
Oh, it is. It really is. We're going to be looking at all the ways that YHWH is presented in these texts, and it's not as simple as you might think.
We've got these excerpts from a document. It is simply titled Complex Unity of YHWH. And it goes into, some really thought-provoking passages. It really paints a, what's the word? Really multifaceted picture of YHWH. And, we're really going to kind of zero in on this mysterious figure, the angel of the Lord.
Ah, yes, the angel of the Lord, also known as the Malach Yahweh in Hebrew. And this figure is really key to unpacking this whole concept of complex unity, because sometimes this angel seems totally separate from YHWH, and then other times it's like they're one and the same. It's kind of like you're trying to grasp something that's constantly shifting and changing right in front of your eyes.
Yeah. It's a bit mind-bending, isn't it? But that's what makes it so intriguing. So let's break down this whole angel of the Lord thing a little bit more. I mean, what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, throughout the Hebrew Bible, we see this figure pop up. We see the angel of the Lord, but this isn't just any angel, right? This is an angel who speaks and acts with the authority of YHWH himself.
Okay, so we're not talking about some, everyday ordinary angel here. This is the being with some serious power.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, because it's not always clear if this angel is a separate being altogether,
Right.
or some kind of manifestation of YHWH himself.
So it's like we're trying to figure out if we're dealing with two distinct entities here, right? Or two sides of the same coin.
You got it. You got it. So, for example, you think about the story of Abraham and Isaac in Genesis, right? When Abraham is about to sacrifice Isaac, it's the angel of the Lord that stops him.
Yeah. It's a powerful, powerful story. And Abraham even names the place Yahweh Yara, which means the Lord will provide, right? Because he believes he actually saw YHWH himself there.
Exactly. And the text itself seems to blur the lines a bit, with the angel speaking as YHWH, even saying, I know now that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. You see, even in this early story, the lines between YHWH and his angel are blurred. And it raises the question, are we seeing two separate beings, or two aspects of the same divine being?
Wow. So right from the start, we're already seeing this kind of, complex interplay between YHWH and the angel. It's like they're intertwined in this way that just defies easy categorization.
Absolutely, and it doesn't stop there. We see a similar kind of dynamic in the story of Jacob wrestling with a mysterious man in Genesis 32, and this man is also identified as God, and Jacob even names the place Peniel, which means face of God.
Wait, so Jacob wrestled with God, or an angel who was just so closely connected to God that is basically the same thing?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets even more intriguing when we look at Hosea 12:3-5. This passage actually references this wrestling match, and it says that Jacob had power over the angel, he prevailed, right? But then it goes on to say that Jacob spoke with us, the Lord God Almighty.
And hold on. Us, as in more than one being. That seems to imply some kind of plurality within YHWH himself.
It does, doesn't it? And then this idea of plurality pops up again when Jacob is blessing his sons. He talks about God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, right? And then he adds the angel who redeemed me from all evil.
So again, we see this kind of blurring between God and the angel, like they're two sides of the same coin,
right?
But maybe a coin with more than just two sides, right? This is getting pretty mind-blowing.
It is. And this back and forth, this seeming paradox is what makes the concept of the angel of the Lord so important to understand it, to understanding the complex unity of YHWH. It challenges us to think about what it truly means for God to be one. And that's something that we'll be exploring even further as we dive deeper into these texts.
So we've seen this angel of the Lord in those early stories acting with the authority of YHWH himself,
Hmm.
and really blurring those lines between a separate being and some sort of manifestation. So where does this all lead us?
Well, it gets even more fascinating as we kind of move through the Hebrew Bible. The angels' authority and actions become even more pronounced, and they really raise even more questions. More questions about the relationship between the angel and YHWH.
Okay, I'm ready for more twists and turns. So where do we go next on this journey, on this exploration?
Let's turn to the book of Exodus. Think about the burning bush, right? God speaks to Moses from the bush, right? But the text also identifies this being as the angel of YHWH.
Wow. Even in that iconic scene, the lines are already blurred. It's like the text is inviting us, inviting us to question our assumptions about how God interacts with the world.
Exactly. And this blurring, it continues throughout Exodus. In Exodus
Hmm.
23, YHWH tells Moses that he's sending an angel before the Israelites to guide them into the promised land. But then he gives them this warning. He says, "Do not rebel against him. He will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him."
My name is in him. That's a powerful statement. It's like, this isn't just some messenger. This angel carries the very essence and authority of YHWH.
Precisely. It's like this angel is an extension of YHWH himself, imbued with his very being. And we see this power on full display in the book of Joshua. Remember when Joshua encounters a man with a drawn sword.
Yeah.
He asks, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And the response is, "Neither, but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come."
Oh, and no wonder Joshua falls down and worships
Yeah.
him. That's quite the introduction.
It is. And what's even more interesting is that this figure identifies himself as the one Moses met at the burning bush, right? Directly linking him to the divine presence of YHWH.
So we've got Genesis, we've got Exodus, and now Joshua, all pointing to this powerful angel who seems to be both distinct from and completely intertwined with YHWH. It's like some sort of divine dance, right?
Right.
Where the partners are constantly shifting and moving in perfect harmony.
That's a great way to put it. And this dance continues into the book of Judges. In Judges 2, the angel of YHWH appears and reminds the Israelites of the covenant they made with YHWH. And after hearing his words, the people weep and offer sacrifices to YHWH.
So again, they're reacting as if they've just encountered YHWH himself,
Yeah.
right? Even though it's the angel who delivered the message. It's as if the angel is a conduit, channeling the very presence of YHWH.
Yes. And it gets even more intriguing. In Judges 13, we have the story of Manoah and his wife. An angel appears to Manoah's wife and tells her that she'll have a son, Samson.
Ah, Samson, the strong man with the infamous haircut.
Right, but there's more to this story than meets the eye. When Manoah asks the angel his name, he gets this really cryptic response. He says, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?"
Wonderful. Okay, that's pretty mysterious. But I feel like that word has some significance, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Remember in Isaiah 9.6, one of the names given to the coming Messiah is Wonderful Counselor. And this name isn't just a coincidence. It connects the angel to the messianic prophecies, in Isaiah.
You're saying this angel in Judges could be foreshadowing the Messiah. That's a bold connection.
It is, and the story gets even more intense when Manoah and his wife offer a sacrifice. The angel ascends in the flames.
Wow, what a spectacle that must have been. No wonder Manoah and his wife were terrified. They thought they were about to die.
They did, but then Manoah's wife has this realization. She says, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and grain offering from our hands, nor shown us all these things, or now told us this."
It's like she's recognizing that this incredible being, this angel who ascends to heaven in fire, is somehow intimately connected to the God who accepts their offering. It's like this awe-inspiring display is meant to point beyond, beyond the angel to the even greater reality of YHWH.
Exactly. And this idea of the angel's connection to YHWH continues into the prophetic writings. In Zechariah 12:8 it says, "On that day the Lord will shield those who live in Jerusalem, so that the feeblest among them will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of the Lord going before them."
So even in later writings, we see this blurring of lines between David, God, and the angel of the Lord. It's like they're all part of this grand interconnected tapestry. Revealing the complex nature of YHWH himself.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
You're getting it. It's not about, neat categories or rigid distinctions. We're dealing with a concept of God that is far more nuanced, far more mysterious than we often imagine. And this leads us right into the heart of complex unity, which is where we'll go next.
So we've met this angel of the Lord, right? This figure who's both distinct from and also intertwined with YHWH. And we've kind of seen how this angel's actions and authority point to something more complex than just this simple understanding of God as singular.
Right.
So how does this lead us to this idea of complex unity? What are we really trying to understand here?
Well, the angel of the Lord is like this key. It's this key that unlocks a deeper understanding of who YHWH is. It challenges us to rethink those traditional views of God, and consider the possibility that YHWH's oneness might not be as simple as we first thought. Could there be a plurality within YHWH himself, a unity that's more intricate, more multifaceted than we've traditionally imagined.
Whoa, that's a huge question. It's like we're being asked to expand our whole understanding of what it means for God to be one. But are there any clues in the texts themselves that support this idea of plurality within YHWH?
There are, and some of them are hidden in plain sight. Let's start with one of most well-known verses in the Hebrew Bible. The Shema Yisrael from Deuteronomy 6.4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
The Shema.
Right.
Right. It's
Yeah.
this powerful declaration of YHWH's unity. But if we're exploring this idea of plurality within YHWH, then how does the Shema fit into all of this?
It's all about the Hebrew word for one, which is echad. Now, echad doesn't necessarily mean an absolute singular oneness, right? It can also refer to a composite unity, a oneness that is made up of multiple parts.
Wait. So if echad can mean a composite unity, does that mean that the Shema isn't necessarily denying plurality within YHWH?
It's certainly open to that. It's certainly open to that interpretation. And this idea of composite unity isn't unique to the Shema. We see it throughout the Hebrew Bible. Think about Genesis 2.24, where a man and woman become one flesh through marriage. Or Genesis 11.6, the people are one and have one language.
Okay. I see what you mean. It's like this unity that embraces multiplicity, like a beautiful tapestry,
Right.
woven together from all these different threads.
Precisely. And this idea of a unity that embraces multiplicity might be a key to understanding YHWH. Let's go back to Genesis 18. Abraham sees three men approaching, and he addresses them as Lord. He offers them hospitality.
Yes, and those three men accept Abraham's offer, right? Even though he's speaking to them as if they're YHWH.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the story of Lot. The story of Lot in Genesis 19. Lot bows down to two messengers, and the text refers to both Lord and YHWH in the context of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's almost as if we're seeing these hints of different persons within the Godhead, right? Each acting with the authority and power power of YHWH.
So it's not always, clear who's who. The lines are blurred. It's like we're being given these glimpses of a divine reality that's far more complex than we initially perceived.
That's a great way to put it. And we find another intriguing passage in Isaiah 48.6c, where YHWH says, "From the beginning I have not spoken in secret. From the time it came to be, I have been there. And now the Lord God has sent me and his Spirit."
Hold on. YHWH is saying that the Lord God has sent me.
Huh.
That's almost like hearing two distinct voices within YHWH.
It's a passage that's puzzled scholars for centuries, and it's not the only one. In Isaiah 63.1:10, YHWH speaks of being both a savior and an angel, and also mentions the spirit as being, involved in the redemption of redemption of Israel.
This is getting more and more complex. It's like there's this interconnectedness between YHWH, the angel, and the spirit, right? They're distinct, but they're also one.
Yes, this idea of interconnectedness, of unity within plurality. It's beautifully illustrated in Ezekiel 37. Think about the vision of the two sticks becoming one.
Oh, right. That's a powerful image. Two sticks representing the divided kingdoms of Israel and Judah becoming one.
Exactly. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for the unification of the kingdoms. But some scholars believe it can also be read as this symbol of the unity within YHWH himself. It's like these different facets of the divine coming together to form this complete and unified whole.
Okay, so we've seen these hints of complex unity throughout the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
But where does this all lead? I mean, does this concept carry into the New Testament at all?
It does. And that's where things get even more interesting. The New Testament picks up on these themes from the Hebrew Bible, and seems to develop them even further. The Gospel of Mark, for example, it introduces Jesus as the Son of God, right?
Yeah.
And then immediately connects him to YHWH by quoting from Malachi and Isaiah.
Right. You're talking about those passages about the Lord coming to his temple and preparing the way
Yeah.
in the wilderness, right? Passages that in the Old Testament clearly refer to YHWH.
Exactly. Mark is intentionally blurring those lines between Jesus and YHWH, applying these Old Testament prophecies about YHWH to Jesus. And then you have Paul in Philippians 2.11. He quotes Isaiah 45.23, saying that every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord.
So Paul is taking an Old Testament passage about YHWH and applying it directly to Jesus. That's quite the statement.
Yeah.
It seems to suggest this deep connection, even a shared identity between YHWH and Jesus.
Yes, and there are many other parallels throughout the Old Testament. YHWH is referred to as Israel's shepherd, and Jesus identifies himself as the good shepherd in the Gospel of John. YHWH is the first and the last in Isaiah, and Jesus is the Alpha and Omega in Revelation. Both YHWH and Jesus are depicted as riding on the clouds. These parallels woven throughout both the Old and New Testaments. They raise these profound questions about the nature of God and the relationship between YHWH and Jesus.
Wow, this is a lot to take in. It's almost like our understanding of God needs to expand to encompass this whole complex unity. But surely some people object to this. this idea of Jesus being equated with YHWH.
Of course, of course. There are passages that raise questions, and spark debate. Some point to verses where Jesus seems to acknowledge having a God. For example, in John 20:17, after his resurrection, he says to Mary Magdalene, "I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God."
Right. So if Jesus is YHWH, then how can he have a God?
It's a good question. Some scholars believe that this statement refers to the unique relationship between the Father and the Son within the Trinity. Even in his human form, Jesus acknowledged the Father as his God.
So it's all about understanding this concept within the framework of a Trinitarian God. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Three distinct persons, yet one God.
Exactly. Another objection arises from passages where Jesus doesn't explicitly claim to be God. In Matthew 19:17, when a man addresses him as good teacher, Jesus responds, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone."
So it seems like he's kind of deflecting that title good, which implies divinity.
He does, but some argue that that Jesus isn't denying his divinity here. Instead he's challenging the man's understanding of true goodness. And in other passages like John 10:11, he clearly identifies himself as the good shepherd, a title that's closely associated with YHWH in the Old Testament.
So maybe it's more about nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah. More about nuance and interpretation than a straightforward denial. It's like the text is inviting us to wrestle with these questions and delve deeper into the mystery of who Jesus is.
Precisely. And then there's the question of Jesus's omniscience.
Yeah.
In Mark 13:32, he says, "But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father."
Right. So if Jesus is God, shouldn't he know everything?
That's a common objection, but some suggest that that this statement needs to be understood within the context of Jesus's earthly mission.
Yeah.
He willingly chose to limit certain aspects of his divine nature while he walked among us.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that in other passages Jesus does demonstrate knowledge of future events.
So again, it's a matter of context and interpretation. These passages don't offer easy answers, but they do invite us into a deeper exploration of who Jesus is.
Absolutely, and ultimately the question of whether or not Jesus is YHWH is one that each individual has to wrestle with. The evidence is complex and open to interpretation. But these are the kinds of questions that should inspire us to dig deeper, to study the scriptures and engage in these thoughtful discussions, about the nature of God.
Wow. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We've seen how the angel of the Lord blurs the lines between a separate entity and YHWH itself, right? Raising these fascinating questions about the nature of the divine. And we've explored how this idea of complex unity might be pointing to a plurality, within YHWH, a concept that is both challenging and incredibly thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. You know, we've seen hints of this complex unity throughout the Bible, from from the angel of the Lord, in the Old Testament, to the person of Jesus in the New Testament, and it all leads back to this fundamental question: what does it truly mean? What does it truly mean for God to be one?
Yeah, and it's clear that this idea of complex unity, it challenges our traditional understanding of God, and invites us to embrace a more expansive view of the divine. What a truly thought provoking deep dive this has been.
It really has, and I hope this exploration has sparked your curiosity, and encouraged you to continue wrestling with these questions as you continue your own journey of discovery. Just remember that God is bigger, more mysterious, and more complex than we can ever fully grasp, and perhaps this complex unity, this glimpse into the multifaceted nature of the divine is a testament to the infinite love, and boundless grace that God offers to us all.